All right, guys, some daily news. Trump vows to pursue executions. So what happened right here? What did Biden do? Heard about this. President-elect Donald Trump promised on Tuesday to vigorously pursue capital punishment after President Joe Biden commuted the sentences of most people on federal death row, partly to stop Trump from pushing forward their executions. Trump criticized Biden's decision on Monday to change the sentences of 37 of the 40 condemned people to life in prison without parole. Imagine the 3 that were left. Like, what the fuck? You did 37, bro. Like, you couldn't do us 3 either. Arguing that it was senseless and insulted the families of their victims. Biden said converting their punishments to life imprisonment was consistent with the moratorium imposed on federal executions in cases other than terrorism and hate-motivated mass murder. Joe Biden just commuted the death sentence on 37 of the worst killers in our country, he wrote. Trump did on social media. When you hear the acts of each, you won't believe that he did this. Makes no sense. Relatives and friends are further devastated. They can't believe this is happening. Presidents historically have no involvement in dictating or recommending the punishments that federal prosecutors seek for defendants in criminal cases. Though Trump has long sought more direct control over the Justice Department's operations, the president-elect wrote that he would direct the department to pursue the death penalty as soon as I am inaugurated. He highlighted the cases of 2 men who were on federal death row for slaying a woman and a girl, had admitted to killing more than had their sentences commuted by Biden. So yeah, why the fuck would he do that? We need to change, like, and this is not no religious shit. This is common sense. You want people to stop committing crime? You think people that are desperate out there with nothing to lose, they're like, okay, I'm gonna go to prison, I'm gonna have something to eat, I'm gonna get to read and exercise. And shout out to my cousin's brother. But dude, you could even get a woman that will marry you. And she could marry you. She could go see you on the weekends. You could have sex with her, get her pregnant. She could stay with you for the whole weekend. And she likes it even better because you're not with her all the fucking time. She could trust you more. It's insane. Is it a plan? So, well, yes, I agree that if you kill somebody, you should die. You kill somebody, you should die. It's sad as it is. Like, we feel sorry for people that do bad shit, but there's places where you go so people could stop. Is it a plan in motion or more rhetoric? On the campaign trail, Trump has fairly consistent in wanting to sort of say that he thinks the death penalty is an important tool and he wants to use it. I do too, but whether practically any of that can happen, whatever. Death row inmates are mostly sentenced by states. So before Biden's commutation, there were 40 federal death row inmates compared with more than 20,000 or 2,000. So 2,000 death row sentences by the states and only 40 in the federal level. So the reality is all these crimes are typically handled by the states, Berman said. Could rape now be punishable by death? Trump's statement, along with some recent actions by states, may present an effort to get the Supreme Court to reconsider a precedent that considers the death penalty disproportionate punishment for rape. Fuck no, that would literally take decades to unfold. It's not something that is going to happen overnight. I think rape should also be death penalty. We're gonna have someone else rape him too. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that. I think something should happen to that person, and it should be violent. Before one of Trump's rallies, he prepared remarks released to the media, said he would announce he would ask for the death penalty for child rapists and child traffickers. I think so. I do. Trump's elections sparks fight over judicial retirement's new judgeship. It's Washington Post. I gotta pay for this shit. All right, man. I thought I signed into this motherfucker. Thought I already have an account, don't I? Sign in. See what the fuck's going on. The Trump's election sparks fight over judicial retirement's new judgeship. Oh, they do want me to pay still. You fucking cunts. Washington Post. High surf causes damage to Santa Cruz Harbor. I think we know about that already. Trump and Musk want to cut billions from budget, but it won't be easy. We already know about that, right? You fucking cunts want me to sign up for this shit too? The bald eagle is officially America's national bird after Biden's signature. So Russia's Arctic Sea trade evidently disrupted as unique sea lift ship sinks. A unique and difficult to replace sea lift ship operated by the Kremlin's military logistics company sank in the Mediterranean Sea near Spain on Christmas Eve. The loss of the 13,000-ton MV Ursa Major is a major blow to Oboron Logistica and the battered Russian shipbuilding industry. So the battered Russian shipbuilding industry. The German-built Ursa Major was just 15 years old, young for an auxiliary vessel, when she suffered what the Russian Crisis Management Center described as a blast in her engine room. The ship was spotted listing to starboard before ultimately sinking. Nearby ships rescued all but 2 of her 16 crew. Ursa Major was a special asset. She was Oberon Logistica's biggest ship and also one of the few vessels on the company's registry with roll-on, roll-off ramps for vehicles to drive directly into and out of her hold, as well as top-mounted cranes for vertical loading. There simply isn't a larger universal ROLO class cargo ship capable of horizontal and vertical loading, one Russian blogger moaned in a massive translated Estonian analyst. Ursa Major, once supported by Russia's Syria garrison, which is now imperiled as a new regime takes over in the war-torn country, but she reportedly was on the other duty when she sank. The Ro-Ro ship sailed from St. Petersburg in mid-December, bound for Vladivostok on Russia's Pacific coast. She passed through the English Channel on December 16 alongside fellow Russian auxiliary Sparta and Russian Navy corvette. A Royal Navy Type 23 frigate shadowed the Russians on the passage. Later, a Portuguese Air Force Lockheed Martin P-3 patrol plane checked in. Visible on Ursa Major's deck at the time, a pair of heavy cranes. The cranes and a pair of special hatches for nuclear-powered icebreakers were reportedly Ursa Major's main cargo as she sailed south through the Med toward the Suez Canal, following the southerly route to Vladivostok rather than northern sea route in order to avoid winter ice. The cranes may have made Ursa Major top-heavy, maybe contributing to her loss. Along with the ship, the cranes destined for the Vladivostok terminal and luxury hatchets for icebreakers went to the bottom. Ursa Major's task in the Far East was to fulfill state objectives related to developing port infrastructure and the northern sea route. Pretty fucked, right? What stood out there is that Russia's ships kind of suck, right? Bunch of Christmas shit. Damn, a cheerleader was stabbed in Zusa. California population growth hit 8 years high in 2024 at immigrants. Duh. Let's see this young lady right here. Officials ID Angelina Gonzalez is shown in an updated photo posted to GoFundMe. Authorities have publicly identified the 18-year-old man accused of fatally stabbing Azusa High School student Angelina Gonzalez. She was killed Friday evening in the 300 block of North Solano Avenue. On Tuesday, officials identified her alleged killer as fellow Azusa resident Daniel Rodriguez, 18, whom authorities have described as an acquaintance of Gonzalez. The exact nature of the relationship and a possible motive had not been released. He is charged with murder and a special allegation that he used a knife. He's being held at Men's Central Jail and a $2.02 million bail. In a statement announcing charges, Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hodgman said his office's Family Violence Division will work to bring the offender to justice for the victim and her family. I want to express my deepest condolences to Angelina Gonzalez's loved ones as they navigate this senseless act of violence and unimaginable grief, especially during this holiday season. Yeah, exactly. I mean, just in general, Rodriguez's arraignment was continued until the 8th. If convicted of all charges, he faces 25 years to life in state prison. They should kill him. He should be dead. Azusa Ting killed and stabbing ID'd by family. School officials have said Gonzalez was a cheerleader, wrestler, and award-winning artist whose work has been displayed in the U.S. Capitol. Her creative talents and vibrant personality, a cheerleader and a wrestler and an artist. Her creative talents and vibrant personality enriched our community in countless ways, the district said in a statement. Anyone with information, that's sad, man. That person should be dead, bro. Should be dead. Oh, look at right here. Stressed Amazon driver abandons 80 packages in Mass woods during holiday shipping. Dozens of Amazon packages were discovered abandoned in the woods of Massachusetts town before Christmas, but it wasn't the Grinch stealing presents. It was the delivery driver who said stress led them to dump the lot. It said the totes were, so police received no reports. Monday, Amazon driver visited the Lakeville Police Department and said they left those packages on the side of the road around 7 p.m. on Saturday because they were stressed. The driver said they planned to report the incident to the manager. Police did not disclose the name of the driver. I am proud of the way our Lakeville police officers handled and investigated this matter. At the time, we are not seeking criminal charges and are considering this a human resources matter for Amazon. He was just tired, bro. Crazy, huh? So man accused of fatally setting New York City subway rider on fire says he doesn't recall incident. Looks crazy, huh? These fucking mental issues and drugs, bro. The man accused of killing a New York City subway rider by setting her on fire has no memory of what happened and admitted to heavy drinking. Sebastian Sabeta Galil, 33-year-old Guatemalan citizen in the United States illegally, appeared before a Brooklyn judge and was formally told he's been accused of murder and arson. Brutal attack. The victim, who still hasn't been identified, was killed while asleep on a stationary F train at the Coney Island Stillwell Avenue station. The suspect allegedly set her on fire with the lighter, and once the victim became engulfed in flames, Zabeta Khalil continued fanning the flames with a shirt. Zabeta Khalil later told police that he drinks a lot of liquor and doesn't know what happened. Zabeta Khalil used a translator to help him understand the court action on Tuesday, and he appeared to be wearing the same white Tyvek suit he had on when New York police officers first walked him out of a police station front, of course. Zabeta Khalil was ordered held without bail, and next court date is on Friday. Even though the victim has not yet been identified, the medical examiner has already determined her death was a homicide, and the cause were thermal injuries and smoke inhalation. Doesn't know what happened. It's an evil act, bro. But it's also just desperate. Man, his life was so fucked. He would just, I don't know. It's bullshit news, right? So Reuters, world news. Looting cripples food supply in Gaza despite Israeli pledge to tackle gangs. Let's read that. It's interesting. These people look sad, bro. Look at this. Looting cripples food supply in Gaza as Israel neglects pledge to tackle gangs. They just want some food. Their pots and pans are fucking... We have it so good right here in America, dude. Come on. So it says $9.5 million in aid. $9.5 million in aid lost in October because of gang attacks. Israel pledged to crack down on gangs, has yet to do so. Tension between Israel and the UN agencies hobbles relief effort. Humanitarian situation hits low as not enough food reaches civilians. Fuck, the phone's going slow. Israel has failed to crack down on armed gangs attacking food convoys in Gaza, despite a pledge to do so in mid-October to help ward off famine in the Palestinian enclave. According to 3 UN and US officials familiar with the matter, the commitment made behind closed doors seemed like a breakthrough because since the beginning of the war in October 20 23, the international community has struggled to enlist Israel's support to improve the dire humanitarian situation in the war-ravaged territory. The 3 senior officials. And you guys know around 40,000 people have been killed, and most of them are women and children. It's pretty crazy, man, if you think about it. Let me turn my light off because somebody's parking in front of me. Since I've been talking, I can't really fucking see. But the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, the IDF as the Israel Defense Forces, has remained focused on its fight against Hamas and taken only limited actions against a handful of gangs operating in parts of Gaza under Israeli control, according to the 3 officials who requested anonymity because of the sensitivity of the information. This fucking thing's going slow. The office of Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu referred questions on the pledge and relief operations in Gaza to the military. An IDF spokesperson declined comment on what was agreed in October and what has been done to curb the looting. Israel has taken significant steps to allow the maximum possible scope of aid to Gaza, spokesperson said. Now, UN and U.S. officials say gang violence has spiraled out of control, crippling supply lines on which most of Gaza's 2.1 million civilians rely for survival. In October, 9.5 million worth of food and other goods, nearly a quarter of all the humanitarian aid sent to Gaza that month, was lost because of the attacks and looting, according to a previously unreported tally of incidents compiled by UN relief agencies with charity organizations. Like, dude, we're sending them a gang of fucking money. We're sending the people that are just fucking, unfortunately, part of the collateral damage of the war, just civilians. I wonder how much money they make off this fucking war. The assessment of looting in November is still underway, but preliminary data shows that it was far worse. 2 people familiar with the matter said in mid-November, a 109 truck convoy chartered by UN agencies came under attack minutes after it was ordered by the IDF to leave a border crossing in southern Gaza during the night, several hours ahead of the agreed schedule, according to 5 people familiar with the incident, including 2 who were present. 109 truck convoy chartered by the United Nations came under attack. Stationed nearby, the IDF did not intervene, the 5 people said. The IDF spokesperson declined to comment on the incident. So they didn't even intervene? That's insane. Georgios Petropoulos, a coordinator at the UN's emergency response arm, OCHA, said the aid agencies were unable to resolve the problem of lawlessness there by themselves. It just gotten too big for humanitarians to solve, he told reporters upon returning from Gaza on Thursday. It's interesting, huh? That's sad, man. So, like, gangs or like these looters within Gaza who don't even fight for Hamas, and they might fight for Hamas. Who even knows? I mean, come on, Hamas would be like, what do you don't think Hamas is going to tax these people? I mean, maybe, right? But maybe they're just people, just desperation creates this sort of scenario. Desperation creates gangs, creates people who steal and rob and murder and kill and commit crime. Desperation does that. So maybe this is something new that's growing, but it's affecting the people who are just like women and children, especially old people who don't have the energy to go and loot and to steal, can't even afford to do that, aren't strong enough, just want to be fed. But again, the United Nations is like the middleman to distribute all this, and they're getting attacked themselves. So it's pretty fucked. Global hunger crisis deepens. So some people are on strike for, there's a Starbucks strike. Biden's a lame. Mexico's president may be toughening fight with drug cartels. Let's see this. Yeah, right. She's fucking dude, how many? I don't know. I could assume these all these assassinations that happen. You know, the president, the female president, she's Jewish. Her family's Jewish. Now she's president for Mexico. She's a Mexican citizen with the Jewish lineage, which is kind of ironic too in a weird way. I don't know how much that plays a part in why she's where she's at, her Jewish heritage. I don't know. It could be just what it is. I'm sure she gets a lot of support though. She's pretty high up there. There's lobbyists, right? There's the APAC. I don't know if they're involved with Mexico either. But her name's Claudia Sheinbaum. Claudia Sheinbaum. That's straight up. That's not even Mexican, dog. That's not even Spanish. That's not even Spanish. But she's highly related to the last president. Supposedly like 30 people were assassinated who were supposed to be her competitors when it came to being a president, right? And so who are these people committing these assassinations? You could assume maybe it's a hired help from the cartel. So initial signs suggest a more aggressive approach, more substantial deployment of troops in at least 6 years. Threat of Trump tariffs is looming. I don't believe her. She doesn't even look like a good person. But again, what is that idea of when you get an idea about somebody, you can just look at them and assume your mind could be just kind of already like have like a, you could just find, if you don't like somebody, you can just find something not to like about them, right? I guess. So maybe that's what I'm doing right here. I don't know, but she just doesn't look, she looks like she's just, I don't know, years of politics, I guess. So, Mexico City, amid a fresh wave of violence, Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum has sent her security chief and thousands of troops to stem a bloody escalation of drug cartel crime in Sinaloa state, signaling a shift in security strategy in the Latin American nation. On the campaign trail, Sheinbaum had promised to largely continue the security policy of her mentor and predecessor, again, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, which prioritized addressing the root social causes of crime rather than attacking the cartels. An approach nicknamed "Hugs Not Bullets" after catchphrase of the former president. That's like fucking even worse than Biden, kind of like. That's insane. So, but initial signs from her first months in office suggest a more aggressive approach with the most substantial deployment in at least 6 years of military and naval troops, as well as special forces and heavy weaponry to Sinaloa since an intra-cartel war broke out in September. High-profile arrests and large drug seizures have followed, including a record bust of over a ton of fentanyl. That's a record bust, a ton. That more front-footed strategy could align well with President-elect Donald Trump, who has called on Mexico to do more to stop the flow of drugs and migrants to the U.S., but it also risks further inflaming violence and homicides as a more confrontational position has done in the past in a country where cartels are heavily armed with military-grade weapons. Sheinbaum's office did not reply to requests for comment. There was a change without a doubt. We are seeing signs that the strategy of hugs and not bullets is on the way out, said Vicente Sanchez, a security expert and member of Mexico's National System of Investigators, a government agency that works to improve the quality of Mexican research. Security experts say they believe the new strategy is partly a response to Trump's threat to impose 25% tariffs on products from Mexico if the country does not curb drug trafficking and the illegal crossing of immigrants into the United States. Some have also taken it as an indirect admission that Lopez Obrador's less confrontational strategy did not work. With many hugs not bullets. You're playing a totally different game than what the cartel's playing. It's just sort of admitting to what side you're on, you know. Some have also taken it as an indirect admission that Lopez Obrador, with many experts saying it helped organized crime groups entrench power in vast swaths of the country. The U.S. ambassador to Mexico, Ken Salazar, publicly criticized the approach, saying it had failed and Mexico is not safe. Military to the streets. Some security experts have drawn comparisons between the operations in Sinaloa and the military war waged on the cartels by then President Felipe Calderon in 2006 that triggered a spiral of violence to which many analysts face or trace the continued high homicide rates Mexico. The United Nations has repeatedly criticized the use of armed forces in the fight against crime in Mexico, arguing that it encourages human rights violations. The Mexican government denies that security in the country has been militarized or that human rights abuses are common. I just think you're playing a different game out here. Worrying about human rights. Cartels don't give a fuck about human rights. That's funny. So let's read one more. Global hunger crisis deepens as major nations skimp on aid. Like they're not giving enough aid. So they're skimping. And of course, it's like African countries, right? It's simple but brutal equation. The number of people going hungry or otherwise struggling around the world is rising, while the amount of money the world's wealthiest nations are contributing toward the help them is dropping. United Nations says that at best it will be able to raise enough money to help about 60,000 of the 307 million people it predicts will need humanitarian aid next year. 307 million. That means at least 117 million people won't get food or other assistance in 2025. The UN also will end 2024 having raised about 46% of the 49.6 billion it sought for humanitarian aid crisis across the globe. Its own data shows it's the second year in a row the world body has raised less than half of what it sought. The shortfall has forced humanitarian agencies to make agonizing decisions, such as slashing rations for the hungry and cutting the number of people eligible for aid. The consequences are being felt in places like Syria, where the World Food Program, the UN's main food distributor, World Food Program used to feed 6 million people, eyeing its projections for aid donations earlier this year. The World Food Program cut the number it hoped to help there to about 1 million people, said cut it about fucking 80%. The consequences are being felt in places, okay, obviously in Syria. Dagash Kamara visited the World Food Program Syria staff in March. Their line was, "We are at this point taking from the hungry to feed the starving," she said. The UN officials see few reasons for optimism at a time widespread conflict, political unrest, and extreme weather, all factors that stoke famine. But it's not just Syrian countries, it's even worse countries like Africa. We have been forced to scale back appeals to those in most dire need. Financial pressures and shifting domestic politics are reshaping some wealthy nations' decisions about where and how much to give. One of the UN's largest Anyways, like the funding gap. Conflict, extreme weather, and soaring inflation have left growing numbers of people in need of humanitarian aid. So extreme weather and soaring inflation. What's the green? Come on, man. It's fucking fun. Or funded and unmet. So 58% funded and only I don't know. Financial pressures and shifting domestic politics are reshaping some wealthy nations' decisions about where and how to give. One of the UN's largest donors, Germany, already shaved 500 million in funding from 23 to 24 as part of the general belt tightening. That's Germany. It's not like Germany has that much money either, you know. What do I say about Donald Trump? Humanitarian organizations also are watching to see what U.S. President-elect Donald Trump proposes after he begins his second term. He has not really said how much he's going to focus on humanitarian aid. He sought to slash U.S. funding in his first term, and he has hired advisors who say there is room for cuts in foreign aid. The U.S. plays a leading role in preventing and combating starvation across the world. It provided $64.5 billion in humanitarian aid over the last 5 years. That was at least 38% of the total such contributions recorded by the UN. The majority of humanitarian funding comes from just three wealthy donors, the U.S., Germany, and the European Commission. They provided 58% of the 170 billion recorded by the UN. Three other powers, China, Russia, and India, collectively contributed less than 1% of United Nations tracked humanitarian funding over the same period, according. But then you can say maybe he's trying to giving jobs to like places like Africa. Who knows? But so China, Russia, and India collectively contributed less than 1%. The inability to close the funding gap is one of the major reasons the global system for tackling hunger and preventing famine is under enormous strain. The lack of adequate funding, coupled with the logistical hurdles of assessing need and delivering food aid in conflict zones, where many of the worst hunger crises exist in conflict zones. Exactly. Is taxing efforts to get enough aid to starving. Almost 282 million people in 59 countries and territories were facing high levels of acute food insecurity. In 23, Reuters is documenting the global hunger relief crisis. On the campaign trail, Trump tried to distance himself from the controversial Project 2025 blueprint, but after winning the election, he chose one of its key architects, Russell Vought, to run the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, a powerful body that helps decide presidential priorities and how to pay for them. For Secretary of State, the top U.S. diplomat, he tapped Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who has a record of supporting foreign aid. Project 2025 makes particular note of conflict, the very factor driving most of today's worst hunger crisis. So conflict is a big reason why there's a hunger crisis. Humanitarian aid is sustaining war economies, creating financial incentives for warring parties to continue fighting. Humanitarian aid is sustaining war economies, creating financial incentives for warring parties to continue fighting, discouraging governments from reforming and propping up malign regimes, the blueprint says. It calls for deep cuts in international disaster aid by ending programs in places controlled by malign actors. Elon Musk has tapped by Trump to lead the Department of Government Efficiency. The aid cuts Trump sought in his first term didn't pass Congress, which controls such spending. Olympics and spaceships. So many people have been hungry in so many places for so long that humanitarian agencies say fatigue has set in among donors. Donors receive appeal after appeal to help, yet have limits on what they can give. It's a long ass article. It's just a big issue. We can't just rely on the same club of donors, generous as they are and appreciative as we are of them. They probably just need help from, China, Russia, and India only give together only less than 1%. America by themselves, with the European Commission, America by themselves, I think it was like 38%. So we have to be appreciative where we're at, man. Just by being like, where did my grandpa like 10 generations ago come from? How did he even, like, just by location, we're lucky. We're lucky off of luck. We're fortunate off of sheer fucking chance to be in America. Off of sheer chance, we're just lucky. Off of sheer chance. Like, did my fucking 10 generations ago grandpa come from far as fuck? And he just happened to make the right decision, and one decision brought him to the West, and specifically North America, before even realizing that there was going to be some European domination, some rebels separating themselves from England and starting a country that becomes the most wealthiest and powerful country on earth. And now fucking 300 million people are struggling across the world, and I'm not. So peace, y'all.